Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jane. You're welcome to today's video. So today I'll be showing you how to cut a mermaid skirt, a 6-panel mermaid skirt. Alright, so I'm going to be drafting directly on my fabric. If you're new here, you're welcome. On this channel I upload pattern drafting and sewing tutorial. Kindly subscribe if you are not yet subscribed, and ensure that you leave a comment and a notification bell on so that anytime I upload a new video, you'll be the first to get notified. Thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber and if you are new, you are highly welcome. Please watch this video to the end and do recommend my channel to your friends. So this is a little illustration of what a 6-panel skirt would look like when we are done drafting on the fabric. And you can see at the back I have a space where I'll be attaching the zipper at the back, and because of that we have a line running at the center panel of the back, and after that we're going to be joining it back to form the 3 panels at the back. Now the following measurements are what you will be required to use for this skirt. You would need your waist circumference, your hip, the length, the knee length from the waist to the knee, and also the length of your skirt. So the waist circumference I'm working with is 30, the hip 40, the length from the waist to the knee is 18 inches, and the length of the skirt is 40 inch. Okay, so these are all the measurements that we will be needing for the skirt. And also we will be needing our bust span measurement, that is the apex, the distance from one nipple to the other. And for this case, the distance from one nipple to the other is 7 inches. And also we will be needing a band height of 1.5. I'll be attaching a band to the skirt, so I'll be taking away 1.5 inch from the length of the skirt for the band, and by the time I subtract 1.5 inch from 42 inch, I'll be left with 40.5. so that will be the length of the skirt after taking away the band height. Okay, so like I said, we will be needing the bust span measurement, and that will be what we will use to cut out the center panel of the skirt. And the bust span that I am working with here is 7 inch. Okay, so for the center of the skirt, that is the center panel of the skirt, we are going to be using our distance from one nipple to the other, which is the bust span. Now for my pattern, I'm going to be dividing my waist into 2. That is 30 divided by 2, which is 15. So I will have 15 inches at the waistline for the front and 15 inches at the waistline for the back. And so what I will do now is, after I have gotten my 15 inches for the front, I'm going to be determining how I'm going to cut out the center panel for the skirt. And like I said, I'll be using my bust span measurement, and the bust span is 7 inches, so that is what we will use for the waist and also for the hip line. So I have 15 inches for the waistline for the front, so what we need to do is take away 7 from 15 inches. So 15 inches minus 7, and that will give us 8 inches. So the remaining value, which is 8 inches, I will go further to divide it by 2, which will give us 4 inches. So the 4 inches will be for the 2 side panel of the skirts. I have 4 inches for the first side, and the second side also 4 inches to make it 8 inches. So that will be for the waistline. Now going down to the hip line, the hip is 40 inches divided by 2, that is 20 for the front and 20 for the back. So after dividing the hip by 2, 20 for the front, 20 for the back, I'm also going to be taking away 7 inches from it, okay, because the front panel is going to have the bust span for the front. Okay, so I'll be taking away 7 inches from my 20 inch at the hip line, and that would be 20 minus 7, and the value I got there was 13 inches, and I'll go further to divide 13 inches by 2, and I have 6.5 inch. So for the sides panel of the waist of the hip line, I'll be taking 6.5. I'll just go ahead and place 6.5 on the hip line for the both sides. So remember that the center is 7 inches and the size is 6.5 inch. Now to determine the wideness of or the fullness of the bottom part, the down part of the skirt, you need to know how wide you want it to be, how full you want your skirt at the bottom to be, and you need to know if you want it to be too full or moderate. So for this situation here, I'll be using 9 inches for the wideness of my skirt, and that 9 inches is going to be placed on fold. So by the time you place 9 inches on fold, you're going to be having 18 inches. So what I have for the center panel of the skirt would be 18 inches when I spread it out, but when it's folded back, it is 9 inches. So now we're going to draw a straight line at the top of this fabric, and the straight line at the top would serve as the waistline for the skirt. So from there, I will place my tape upward. I'll take away 1.5 inch from my tape, and I'll place a mark at my hip line. And from there point, I will also place a mark at my knee line. So I'll just go ahead and place a mark at the hip line and also at the knee line. Distance from my waist to my hip is 8 inches minus 1.5 inch for the band. So now I've gotten this point, I'm going to use my ruler to square it all across the fabric. Okay, so I'll just do that right now, and this is what it is. So now after I've squared that across, I will come down to the hem of the skirt, and I'll mark the length of my skirt, which is 40.5, and I'll just mark a point right there at 40.5 and use my ruler as well to connect it and draw a line across the fabric. Now for the seam folding allowance of this fabric for this skirt, I'll be taking 1 inch below the hemline. So I'll mark a point 1 inch below the hemline, and I'll use my ruler to draw out a line as well for the folding allowance of the skirt. So now that we've gotten that, now we are going to start placing our measurements on the waistline. So for the waistline, my nipple to nipple is 7 divided by 2. I have 3.5. I'll be adding extra half an inch to it to make it 4 inches. I'll do the same thing for the hip line. I'll add half an inch to it as well, 4 inches. But coming down to the knee line, I'll be subtracting half an inch from the 4 inch at the front, so just to create a kind of curve at the knee line. So I will place 3.5 at the knee line. Now that I've gotten these 3 points, I will connect from the waist down to the hip with a straight line, and from the hip to the from the hip to the knee, I'm going to slightly slant my ruler to connect to my knee line. So you can see that I have gotten the shape for the center front of the skirt. So to complete the shape of the skirt, we will come down to the bottom of this dress. That's to the bottom of the skirt, the hemline of the skirt, and I'll mark my 9 inches. Note that I said the opening for the bottom of the skirt is 9 inches, and that's on fold. So I'll place a mark of 9 inches on my skirt, and I'll just mark that right there. And then I'm going to be creating a line that's an A-line shape from the knee to meet the hemline of my skirt. So I'll just place my ruler the way I just did in the video right now, and I'll be drawing from my knee to connect to the opening I have at the bottom of my skirt. So this has formed the A-line shape for the panel for the front. So you see now I have connected from the knee down to the bottom of the skirt. So after we've gotten this shape, we are going to go ahead and cut out this pattern, so I will be cutting from the folding allowance all the way to the waistline. Okay, now I'm done cutting. I'll take out the excess by the sides, and this is what the center front for the front panel looks like. Okay, and note that it's on fold. At the top, at the waistline there, I'm going to be adding half an inch sewing allowance to join it to the waistband when I'm about to fix the waistband to the skirt. So this is what we have for the front. I'm going to just go ahead and open it up so that you will see. This is what the front panel looks like, the center front panel looks like, and this is what the bottom of the skirt looks like as well. Next up, we're going to be cutting the center back. So to cut the center back, I have my fabric, and I'll place the center front on my fabric, and what I'll do is to just extend the lines. And for the center back, I'm going to be adding extra half inch at the hip line for the bum, so that the bum doesn't look like it's pressed at the back. So I'll be adding extra half an inch out by the side for the bum, and then I will reconnect that back to the waistline and also down back to the knee line. So the extra half an inch extension for the at the hip line is for to give room for the bum to sit nicely at the back of the skirt. So I will just reconnect that back to the waistline and then back to the knee line. So now to the part where I have the zipper, you can see from that folded edge of my front, I have like 5 inch extra, and the reason for that is so that we have some kind of tail at the back where I have the zipper. So at the zipper part, I'm going to add 1 inch at the waistline. At the hip, I'll add 1.5, and at the knee line, I'll be adding 1 inch at that point. So from the waist down to the hip, I will connect to the hip, and from my hip down to the knee, I'll also use my ruler to connect the point. Now I'm going to from my knee down to the bottom of the dress, I'm going to also create the A-line shape. So this is the reason why I left the extra space at that point, so that I can also have some sort of flare at that part where I have the center back line running down to the bottom of the dress. So from my knee line, I'm going to use my ruler to also create the flare A shape down to the bottom of my skirt. So after you've gotten that shape now at the back, we go ahead and cut out this pattern. So the center back of the back has been formed. I'll just go ahead and cut it out. I'll cut out the sides, and I'll also cut out the other part where the zipper is also sitting. So this is what we do. We're going to just go ahead and use our scissors to cut out, and after cutting out, here it is, guys. Now we're going to be cutting out the side panel of the front and for the back. To cut out the side panel, I'm going to be cutting it all at the same time, and I have my fabric folded into 4. All right, so I have it folded into 4. I have like 40-inch on fold right now. And what we'll do is to grab the center front of the front, and we are going to place it on the fabric, okay, and then align the edges. And what I'll also do is to use my ruler to mark out the lines at the waist, the hip, and the knee line, so that it also reflects on the fabric that is underneath the center front. Okay, so now at the waistline and at the hip line, I'm going to go out by half an inch like I did for the center back of the back. So after going out by half an inch at the hip line, I will reconnect it back to the waistline and then back to the knee line. After reconnecting this back, we are going to be cutting out that shape out so that we can now work on the side of the skirt. So I will just go ahead now and cut out from the bottom down to the top of the skirt so that we can continue working on the side. Okay, so now I've cut out the shape, and after cutting out the shape, we go ahead and take out the center front of my pattern and then keep it aside. So we are no longer going to be needing that. So we are going to now go ahead and modify the side panel for the front. Now the side panel for the front doesn't need a curve, so I'm going to mark on the hip line 1/2 inch inward and then reconnect it back to the waistline and the knee line with a straight line, because we didn't create a curve at the center front when we were drawing out this pattern on our fabric. So that's what I'll do now. After I've gotten that now, we will go back to our calculations and then we'll start imputing all of the measurements that we previously calculated while we were about to start this pattern. So on my paper there, you see that at the side of the waistline I have 4 inches at both sides, and for the hip line I also have 6.5 inch. So that is what we are going to be translating on our fabric. Now we are going to be placing all of our measurements on our fabric, and we're going to be starting with the waistline. So for the waist now I have 4 inches for the side, and I'm going to be placing that on my waistline, and I'll go ahead and add 2 extra inch for sewing allowance at the waistline, and in total that will make it 6 inches for my waist. So I've added 2 extra inch for the sewing allowance at the side for the waist, and coming down to the hip line at the part where I have the straights, we are going to be taking your measurement from that point. So on my hip line I have 6.5. I'll be placing 6.5 from the straight edge of the hip line, and I'll go ahead and mark 6.5, and I'll also add 2 inches sewing allowance to the hip as well. So now I have my hip, which is 6 inches, 6.5 inches plus 2 inches, that will be 8.5 on the hip. So now I'm going to reconnect from the waist down to the hip line. Okay, so now after getting that curve, now we're going to be working on the knee line. So for the knee line, I'm going to be taking 1.5 inch away from 6.5, and that will be 5 inches. Depending on how curvy your client is or you are, you can go 2 inches. There's really no standard for this. You can go half, you can go 1 inch, depending on what you want. But I'll be taking 1.5, and if I take away 1.5 from 6.5, I have 5 inches. And then I added extra 1 inch for sewing allowance, and then I'll go ahead and reconnect it back to the hip line. So now the curve for the side has been formed. Now from that knee line, now I'm going to connect it down to the bottom of the skirt to create the A-line shape for the bottom of the skirt. So I'll just use my ruler now to connect the point from the knee down to the bottom of the skirt. So the shape has been formed. We can now go ahead and cut out the pattern. So I'll just start cutting out my pattern so that we can reveal what the side panel looks like. Here it is, guys. This is the side panel for the front and the back. Now I'm going to modify the front because we do not need that hip extension at the hip line. So what I will do is to take out 2 pieces of the front for the front, and I'm going to be cutting out that 1/2 inch extension that I have on my hip line so that it can conform to what the center front of the front looks like. So after cutting it out, we are done. This is what it is. This is what it looks like, guys. The front, center front, and the side panels. I'm just going ahead to label what each of the side is. And please do note that when you're cutting this on your fabric directly, you're cutting them you are marking at the wrong side, and you're also marking it right sides facing each other. So this is what the center front and the side looks like. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section. I will see you guys in my next one, and in the next video I'm going to be showing you guys how to sew the 6 panel skirts with a full lining. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys. Remain blessed. Bye.